Hello guys, and welcome to this new feature on the channel. So this is a new feature on the channel and I have titled it News Roundup of the Day. So News Roundup of the Day, and in this slot I am going to be picking out 5 choice stories that tickle my fancy in the course of the day, and I am going to be presenting it to you. So it's not going to be as detailed in analysis as my usual videos, but we can of course carry on conversations in the comment section as usual. So without further ado, I'll bring you the opening 5 story, the launch 5 stories. So the 5 stories that I am going to be bringing you feature IPOIP confronting Buhari, or protesting against Buhari rather, in America, and then the Afenifere story. We're going to be revisiting that as well to catch up with what is going on there. Then I am going to be bringing you the narrative of a British professor who is applying for Nigerian citizenship. So that will be the light-hearted story in the mix, so look out for that one. And then we're going to be talking about Pastor Tunde Bakare, who is of course in the news at the moment for being touted as a possible replacement for Oshibanjo. So we're going to stop there as well. We're a quick pit stop there just to catch up with what he has to say, and then we'll be rounding off with Peter Obi, the running mate of Abubakar Atiku, who is having like a bit of a spat with somebody in the Igbo community. So those are going to be the 5 stories. So let's kick it off with the IPOIP narrative. So here we go. IPOIP plans protest against Buhari in New York. So that's the headline. IPOIP plans protest against Buhari in New York. Emerging reports say that members of the indigenous people of Biafra, IPOIP, have planned a massive protest against President Muhammadu Buhari and his government during the 75th United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, in the United States of America this week. Members of the group in the US, sources said, had vowed to be resilient and stand against the continued onslaught, arrest, and secret abduction of its members by agents allegedly sponsored by the federal government. Recall that Buhari, in the company of no fewer than 3 governors and 7 ministers, had departed Abuja for New York to represent Nigeria at the 75th global meeting of UNGA. So now that's a brief summary of that story. IPOIP members are protesting against Malam Buhari in New York. I shall be doing a separate video on this if you want a more detailed analysis and the fuller story. So there'll be a follow-on video on this particular story that is done separately, but that really is the gist of that story. IPOIP members are planning to protest against Malam Buhari at the United Nations meeting that he is attending in America. So that's the first story. Nnamdi Kanu taking his agitation and his movement to an international audience. So we go on to the next story, the Afenifere story, of course, the Fasaoranti story, a story that you all are familiar with. Of course, this is something that was widely reported a few weeks ago, if not a couple of months ago. So the Afenifere story revisited, and here is the headline. Afenifere accuses police of poor investigation on the murder of Fasaoranti's daughter. So that's the headline. Afenifere accuses police of poor investigation of Fasaoranti's daughter. We all know the story, so let's find out what the latest is. Yoruba socio-political group Afenifere has accused the police in Ondo State of not being serious about resolving the murder of Olufunke Olakunrin, the daughter of its leader, Ruben Fasaoranti. The group, in the statement on Sunday, September the 22nd, by spokesman Yinka Odumakun, said it was compelled to speak out over the lackadaisical attitude of the police in investigating the gruesome murder of the woman. Late Olakunrin was murdered on July around Ore in Ondo State by persons suspected to be Fulani headsmen, who also took captive other persons during the attack. According to Odumakun, the police have shown signs that he had no plans to launch any serious investigation into the matter. Mr. Kehinde Fasaoranti, the junior brother of the deceased, had stated openly a day after the incident incident that the police in Ore told him that his sister was killed by Fulani herdsmen when he went to collect her body the day she was killed, and challenged the police to bring out the statement he wrote at their station. They have not contradicted him till date. The first sign we got that there was no attempt to launch any serious investigation into the murder was when the car in which she was killed was released to the family from the Ore police station the day after the murder without any forensic investigation into the most prized evidence at the scene of the crime. So let's just pause there and reflect on that for the moment. This is one of the most high-profile crimes that happened within the Nigerian space. Everybody was angered and tempers were raised. So now the police now swings into action, and then the only evidence that they do have of the car that was involved in this incident, they released it a day after the incident took place. So what investigation then are they claiming that they are doing if the number one evidence that they do have been released back to the family? So that just then tells you all you really need to know about the Nigerian police system. Their only duty is to extort money from the people on the streets and to brutalize the population, because I have not ever known the Nigerian police force, or at least it is rare. I cannot say I have never, well, I don't know personally, but I cannot say it has never happened, but it's very rare that you would hear the Nigerian police forces take an investigation to its logical conclusion, and especially when it's involving protected species like the Fulani herdsmen. They would not dare go anywhere near that sort of story or that sort of incident, because of course they know that the powers that be will weigh down on them immediately, sack them, if not even throw them into a gulag or something. So shoot and walk away free is effectively the license that the Fulani herdsmen have within the Nigerian space now. That is why we are all living in fear of these people, because of course we know they can do anything to you and there will be no repercussions. So that is why you would see a small 14-year-old boy rolling about 10 cattle down the road, and you, a full-grown man, your heart will skip a beat because you see this boy, because of course you know that anything that that boy does to you, he will just do it to you and walk away free, because this is now the license that they have. The number one evidence that these people have, they released it back to the family in a case so high profile that the vice president of Nigeria had to go to the house of the victims to console and to speak with them. And this is the sort of case that you cannot even handle. So if they can't handle a case that high a profile, then what sort of case can they handle? This is really where the question is, but let's carry on. It was when we engaged the police high command that they came to pick the car 6 days later. So they released the car and then came to pick it up 6 days later. This is just farcical. The car has now been returned to the family with no report on the examination, the statement reads. Odumakin alleged that there was no attempt by the police to carry out an autopsy on the corpse until the family and Afenifere also demanded one from the police before the burial. One was carried out, and only that report was given to the family when they went to collect the car. Beyond this, the police have not made any briefings to the family on their investigation into this dastardly act. There are other bizarre developments that worry us on police investigations into this murder. For instance, the driver of the car in which Mrs. Olakuni was killed has not been asked a question by the police till date. Furthermore, a few days after the killings, a staff of the deceased husband, Bankole Olatobosun, was arrested as he was said to be in touch with Mr. Olakuni's driver, Femi Ajayi, who drove the Sienna bus in the deceased convoy. A week after the killing, Femi was brought into the family house in Akure by police officers in the anti-kidnap unit. The story from the crime scene was that Femi got down from the Sienna bus and followed the gunmen who killed Mrs. Olakuni. He claimed he was kidnapped, but there is no evidence of ransom requested from him or his family. He and Bankole Olatobosun are now free men. Femi even sauntered into the Fasaoranti family house 3 days ago. All the above put together suggests to us clearly that the police have not done any serious investigations into this murder, and it worries us that we are seeing all the signs of lethargy that usually attends high-profile murders with powerful masterminds in our country. Afenifere therefore calls on all those who respect human life in Nigeria and across the world to join us in asking the police. We would let the public know how far we have done very soon. Femi Joseph, Police Public Relations Officer for Ondo Command, said. So now, how far they have gone so far seems to be where these people want to rest it, but of course it's not going to rest there, because we remember Jack Conde. Nobody knows what happened to him till date. Abiola, etc., etc. The stories are countless, and all these things happen in that country. There is a purport to have a policing system, and no investigation has ever concluded in a conviction in any of these high-profile situations that we have within the country. So if they are bandits or whatever happened, the public are watching, and we are putting our focus on this particular one, and we would like a result. So we go on to the next story. So this time we're going to Pastor Tunde Bakare. Pastor Tunde Bakare, of course, a name that is recurring in the news for obvious reasons, is being touted, of course, as a possible replacement to Yemi Oshibanjo. Somebody is saying that I don't pronounce that Oshibanjo very well, but Oshibanjo is how I know how to pronounce it. So Oshibanjo it is now. So, Oshibanjo, or however it is pronounced, the vice president, that's the next narrative. And Tunde Bakare, of course, is being touted, as I said, and here is the headline. I am number 16, Buhari is number 15. The Pastor Bakare prophecy that got everybody talking. So now this is a video that this guy did a while ago, but is recording now because, of course, is relevant to what is going on within present day Nigeria. Is a hot topic of the moment. So of course they've gone to dig up this video. So there was a time that this chap, this Tunde Bakare chap, he did this video saying that Buhari is the 15th president of Nigeria, and he, Tunde Bakare, is going to be the 16th president of Nigeria. And that video, he had his time in the sun, and then it's gone into the archives, and then of course with this guy now being touted. So of course now that particular video is being dug up again and being represented as a prophecy. And there's nothing that a Nigerian pastor loves more than a prophecy. So he's probably going to milk this one for as much as he can get out of it. I have the video on my channel as well. I might well tag it to this particular video, or just put a link in the comment section so you can go view it there. Either way, the video is on this channel. So that's pretty much the narrative of this particular story. Pastor Tunde Bakare priming and peacocking as he always does whenever his name is in the news. So we go on to the next story. So now this story really tickles me, and I'm sure it should tickle you too. So now, before I go into this story, a little bit of a preamble. So this is the narrative of a British guy who is applying for Nigerian citizenship. Now, there's nothing especially out of the ordinary for somebody applying for the citizenship of a country that they live in. I mean, people do it all over the world, but the real story here is that when people will often do this, is usually somebody living countries like Nigeria going to a more advanced and a more civilized country to seek a better life there. You don't see then somebody coming from an advanced and a civilized country going to a country like Nigeria to seek citizenship there. So this is what makes it a story, and not especially because this guy is seeking citizenship. So with that, I bring you this. David Jowett, British professor, has lived in Nigeria for 45 years. So that's the headline. David Jowett, British professor, has lived in Nigeria for 45 years. So let's get into exactly what's going on in David's life. Professor David Jawet, a British expatriate, has spent 45 years in Nigeria teaching English at various institutions. The professor said he first came into the country in 1963 as a young graduate seeking exploration, but finally came back fully in 1974. Jowett said he loved being a Nigerian citizen and has tendered his application in that regard. A 78-year-old Professor David Jowett is a British citizen who has stayed in the country for 45 years. According to information, he has spent the time teaching English at various universities in Nigeria and is presently holding an appointment at the University of Jos in Plateau State. In a recent interview, he said he came into the country in 1963 but started staying full-time since 1974. I was born in the United Kingdom, in London to be more precise. I first came here in 1963, but I haven't been here all the time since then. I have been here continuously since 1974, which is 45 years ago, he said. When responding to what brought him into the country, he said he came in 1963 because he just wanted to have an adventurous exploration as a young graduate from the University of Cambridge in Britain. He said he did not return to his home country because he loves the experience of immersing himself in another culture. David Jawett said his favorite Nigerian soup is egusi and has learned how to cook it. When I came here in 1963, I enjoyed my teaching experience, and from that time onwards, I have always thought it is a very worthwhile thing for me to be a teacher here. But then, of course, there is another bigger dimension to the whole thing, which is living in another country and experiencing another culture. And that personal contact with a different culture is what I found immensely rewarding, he said. He said that he has applied for Nigerian citizenship and is waiting to be given. On what he does not like about the country, he mentioned the issue of timekeeping. So now that timekeeping that he mentioned, of course, is him just being political and polite because of all of the issues that this guy could have mentioned about Nigeria. I think timekeeping is at the bottom of the list. The lack of electricity, the lack of security, the bad roads, etc., the brutality and the poverty. I don't think timekeeping is really at the top of that list, but of course is a foreigner and he has to be polite. We carry on. Jowett mentioned his favorite food is egusi soup and he knows how to prepare it. My answer will be everything, and that is of course the answer to his favorite food. So my answer will be everything, and I am happy to tell you that even recently I ate a local food prepared by the Gomia people of Plateau State, which I had never tried before. I like egusi soup, which I sometimes prepare by myself, he said. So this is the story of David Jowett, a British gentleman, a Cambridge professor who has decided to make his life and home, and indeed his person, a Nigerian. So now this is well done to David, of course, because as I said, somebody seeking citizenship is not necessarily a story in itself, but of course the character involved, a British person, and the place involved, Nigeria, makes it a story. So that's the light-hearted story of this particular newsreel. So we go on to our fifth and final story in this five-part series. And please comment in the comment section. Let me know what you are making of it, because of course this is the launch of this feature. So I am quite keen to see and hear what you guys make of it. So we go on to the final story, which is of course the Peter Obi story. So here's the headline. You are too small to diminish me, Peter Obi tells Ngige. So that's the headline. You are too small to diminish me, Peter Obi tells Ngige. So that's the headline. Now let's get into the body of it. The vice presidential candidate of the People's Democratic Party in the February elections, Mr. Peter Obi, has said the Minister of Labour and Employment, Dr. Chris Ngige, cannot diminish him. He said Ngige's achievement as the governor of Anambra was too small to erase his, that's Obi's, achievement and reputation before the people of Anambra State, who he served for 8 years. He asked Ngige to focus his energy on how to make Nigeria work rather than dissipating energy on how to pull him down. Obi spoke through his media advisor, Valentin Obianye, in a statement made available recently. The PDP vice presidential candidate was reacting to a newspaper publication credited to Ngige, wherein the minister allegedly said he was ashamed of the quality of road constructed by his successor, including Obi. Obi, in the statement, wondered why Ngige loved attacking him, stating that he had hardly made any bad comments against Ngige, even in the heat of electioneering. He said, "What is most condemnable in Ngige's attack are the lies he tells just to bring Obi down. How can he mention roads such as," and then he goes on to list a series of roads, "and deliberately forget that Obi did greater portions of those roads? Over 90% of the roads Ngige mentioned he built were done in his local government area." The statement said though Obi used local contractors to build roads during his reign as governor, major road contracts in the state were done by expatriates at the time. It added, knowing the importance of road maintenance, shortly before he left, Obi set up the Anambra State Road Maintenance Agency with full complement of brand new equipment. He also left over 4 billion naira in the Ministry of Works for road maintenance before he handed over. He asked Ngige to stop comparing his tenure as Anambra State Governor with that of Obi because he achieved little or nothing in his 33 months reign as governor of the state before a court of appeal in Enugu nullified his election in 2006. So beef between the Igbo elder statesmen. Now, I wouldn't say really they are elder statesmen because Obi, of course, is still relatively young man, although he's approaching the elder statesman status, but certainly beef between these senior Igbo citizens. Maybe we should call Nnamdi Kanu to come and sit in court and have charge over them and settle them and tell the boys to behave. So beef between Obi and this character Ngige is the last story that rounds off this particular news reel. So now the 5 stories have been listed and we can discuss them all in the comment section, and I especially want to know what your take is on this feature that I am introducing, this news roundup of the day that I am introducing as a feature. So I want to know what you are making of it. Good idea, bad idea, what improvement you'd like to see, etc. So feedback on the feature and feedback on the story. So all of these things go on in the comment section. But before you come join me in the comment section to have this involved conversation, click on the red subscribe button so it turns gray. Bell button notifies you every time I drop a new video. Then come let me know what you are making of all these in the comment section. So I'll leave you here, join you there. But here I say peace.